Welcome to the Explainer.
Sounds crazy, right? But believe it or not that long ago, ice, it wasn't just for chilling your drink. It was a luxury good. They even called it white gold. And the story of how it became, just a normal everyday thing, it is way more dramatic than you could possibly imagine.
So to get why, we need to head back in time. Picture this. It's the 1840s, you're in Florida, and it is brutally hot. And there's this doctor, John Gorey, who is just desperate. He's in the middle of a deadly yellow fever epidemic, watching his patients literally burn up with these raging fevers. He found one thing, just one thing, that seemed to help. But getting his hands on it was next to impossible.
And that one thing was ice. Yeah, simple frozen water. He'd hang these big pans of ice from the ceiling to try and cool the rooms down. But the price? It was just insane. A couple of days' worth of ice cost more than what the average person earned in a whole year. And the reason for that? The entire supply, and I mean all of it, was controlled by this one super powerful guy, a man they called the Ice King.
All right, so that brings up a couple of big questions, right? First, who was this Ice King? And second, how in the world do you build a global empire on frozen water? It seems kind of ridiculous.
Well, meet Frederick Tudor. Back in 1805, this Boston merchant came up with an idea that was so bonkers, so out there, that people genuinely laughed in his face. His grand plan? To cut huge blocks of ice out of the frozen ponds in New England and then ship them all the way down to the sweltering heat of the Caribbean.
And you know what? At first, everyone who laughed at him was totally right. His first few tries were an absolute disaster. His very first shipment to Martinique, it just melted into a giant puddle on the dock because he hadn't built an ice house yet. He went so deep into debt that he ended up in debtor's prison. Not once, but twice. But it was in that rock-bottom moment that he had a complete revelation. He realized he didn't need to sell ice. No, he needed to teach people to want it.
And this quote from Tudor really nails his genius. He figured out that if he could just get people to try a cold drink for a week, they'd be hooked for life. You can't go back to warm drinks after that. So his strategy shifted. He started giving bartenders free ice. The deal was, serve cold drinks for the same price as the warm ones. He just knew that once people tasted that simple, refreshing luxury, they would never, ever go back. He wasn't selling a product, he was selling a feeling, a craving.
And just like that, with that one simple marketing pivot, his business didn't just turn around, it absolutely exploded. He didn't just create a company. He built this massive, complex system that, and this is no exaggeration, would go on to remake the modern world.
I mean, just get a load of this number. In a single year, 1856, his empire shipped 132,000 tons of ice. That is a colossal amount. It got so big that ice became one of America's largest exports by sheer weight. The only thing they shipped more of was cotton. That's insane.
And all of this shipping and storing created something totally new, what we now call the cold chain. Think of it as a network of ice-cooled ships, special ice houses, and later refrigerated rail cars. This wasn't just a small change. It was a complete game changer for huge industries like meatpacking, fishing, and even breweries. The impact of this trickled down into the most surprising places, like your salad bowl. For the first time ever, you could ship perishable foods across the entire country. And here's a fun fact for you. Ever wonder why it's called iceberg lettuce? Well, it's because to get it from California to the East Coast, they had to pack it under giant mounds of crushed ice. So the name literally comes from the ice trade.
And it didn't just change our food, it changed our cities. Think about a place like Chicago. Before refrigeration, if you wanted fresh meat, the giant, smelly, dirty stockyards and slaughterhouses had to be right there, in the middle of everything. But once refrigerated rail cars came along, you could move all of that industry outside the city. This completely reshaped how cities were built, paving the way for the downtowns full of offices and apartments we see today.
Okay, but let's circle back. Remember our doctor in Florida, John Gorey? While the Ice King was building this massive empire, Gorey was still haunted by all the people he couldn't save. And so he started working on something in secret, an invention that had the power to tear down Tudor's entire kingdom.
After years of trial and error, he figured out this really cool principle of thermodynamics. It works like this. First, you compress air, which makes it super hot. Then, you cool that hot compressed air down, maybe with a bucket of water. And here's the magic part. When you let that cooled air expand really, really fast, its temperature drops like a rock, way below freezing.
And using that simple idea, he built the world's first working artificial ice machine.
So this basically sets up an epic battle. In one corner, you've got the Ice King's natural ice, harvested from rivers. His marketing team called it God's ice, pure, natural, the way it was meant to be. And in the other corner, you have Gory's machine-made ice. It was made from pure water, you could make it anywhere, all year round, but Tudor's side gave it a different name. They called it godless ice.
Now, you can bet the Ice King wasn't about to let his monopoly just melt away. He fought back hard. He started this huge smear campaign, paying newspapers to print headlines just like this one, calling Gory a crank and mocking his invention. And sadly, it worked. The constant ridicule completely ruined him, both financially and professionally.
But Tudor's empire had a big, dirty secret. A fatal flaw, really. See, by this point, those pure New England rivers and ponds, well, they weren't so pure anymore. They were filled with industrial pollution. So his god's ice was often full of nasty bacteria, and it was actually making people sick. They were getting diseases like cholera from the very ice that was supposed to be keeping their food safe.
And in the end, that's what brought the empire down. People got scared, and rightly so. The idea of having clean, safe ice made right in your own town from pure water, it was just too good to pass up. And so, Dr. Gory's godless machine eventually won. And it paved the way for the incredible refrigerated world we all take for granted.
And once the technology was there, the takeover was unbelievably fast. Just look at these numbers. In the 1920s, almost nobody had a fridge. But by 1944, 85% of homes had one. Think about that. We adopted the home refrigerator even faster than we adopted the car. That's how much people wanted this.
And today, wow, the legacy of Gory's little machine is absolutely everywhere, but we almost never think about it. That same basic idea, compress, cool, expand, is what keeps our vaccines and insulin safe. It's what makes blood banks possible. It underpins our entire global food supply. And it even cools our most advanced scientific tools, from the giant particle colliders to the James Webb Space Telescope.
You know, it's pretty profound when you stop and think about it. For thousands and thousands of years, for pretty much all of human history, our only trick when it came to temperature was fire. We could only add heat to the world. We could make things warmer, but that was it.
The real revolution, the one that built the world we live in now, wasn't about adding energy. It was about learning how to take it away. Mastering the ability to make things cold is a super recent development in the grand scheme of things, and it's this quiet, invisible force that makes almost everything about our modern lives possible.